tomorrow, but my own sense is he's going to start pulling back, starting tomorrow, and ending about a week and a half from now. Here is what has happened, a quick update.
Although American bombers are seen taking off Britain airbase. United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer has made it clear they are not part of the war.
Been absolutely clear that this is not our war, and we're not going to get dragged into it. But I'm equally clear that when it comes to defence and security and our economic future, we have to have closer ties with Europe.
Key NATO allies all refusing to take any part in Trump's war effort, making it clear they are not participants of the war.
The months ahead may not be easy. I want to be upfront about that. No government can promise to eliminate the pressures that this war is causing. I can promise we will do everything we can to protect Australia from the worst of it.
Nous croyons aussi aux valeurs démocratiques que nous défendons. C'est ce qui fait que vous venez de le rappeler, nous défendons l'un et l'autre le retour à la paix, au cessez-le-feu, au calme, à la libre circulation à travers le détroit d'Ormuz.
Bueno, creo que todo el mundo sabe cuál es la posición española, es una posición muy clara. No vamos a autorizar, desde el principio le hemos dicho, la utilización de las bases de Morón y Rota.
Denying United States air bases, refusing to send additional troops, Trump's allies have made their stance known. Trump is completely isolated in the war he started. And now, isolated by NATO allies, he has threatened to exit NATO. Trump's frustration is increasing as the isolation grows.
This is NATO. And I've always said NATO's a paper tiger. And I've always said we help NATO, but they'll never help us. And if the big one ever happened, and I don't think it will, but if the big one ever happened, I guarantee you they wouldn't be there.
And as far as NATO is concerned, that's a decision that'll be left to the president. But I'll just say a lot has been laid bare.
While the United States is facing resistance from allies, Iran is strengthening its geopolitical support. Russia and China have openly come out in support of Iran, with Russia still reportedly supplying advanced defense systems. As the war continues, Trump finds himself completely alone, abandoned by his allies, and with the burden of the war he himself started.
We'll be running a poll on what we expect tomorrow. Will Trump be exiting? Will he be exiting NATO, exiting the war, or doing nothing? So we'll have a poll on this, and we'll keep updating this. I welcome Abhijit Chawda, well-known geostrategic expert from Mumbai tonight, and Tatiana Kukareva, from Moscow. She's a fantastic senior journalist. Dr. Zachary Paikin. He's Deputy Director of Better Order Project at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft in France. Salvatore Babones, Professor Salvatore Babones from the University of Sydney, is with us tonight. And we have Vibhuti Jha. He's been a Republican candidate in the past, and I don't know which way he stands on Trump right now. Let's see. And we'll have a couple of other pro-Trump voices also joining us in a bit. Now, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? And why is he saying, I'm going to get out of NATO? Why is he saying... Why is he saying that he's going to get out of NATO? Is that being a bit of a crybaby? Professor Salvatore, I want to start with you. How do you view this?
Well, everyone's saying that this is Trump's war, but what they're not realizing is that it's Europe's oil, not just Europe, but Asia's oil. The U.S. war aims are primarily to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear capability. Just imagine if India had the opportunity in 1998 to prevent Pakistan from developing a nuclear capability, I think it would have taken it. The same thing has happened now with the U.S. and Israel. Now, that has collateral damage, but it's not the U.S. that's preventing oil transiting the Strait of Hormuz. That's Iran preventing oil transiting, and it's a problem for Europe, Australia, and Asia that Iran is blocking their oil, not America's oil.
So what does he gain, Vibhuti, by getting out of NATO? What does he gain? A momentary headline?
No, it's not a headline, Arnab. I think you raise a very valid point. The exiting of NATO, I'm not happy to make that statement, but I will definitely say so on your show because you are bold and brave. So am I. NATO is the only war club, white only, members only, of the 21st century, that Second World War scenario. Only war club. Imagine if BRICS were to become a war club, exactly copying NATO statements. So Trump is dismantling that old order. When leaders take a very bold decision, they are alone. Europeans, and this is mockery of democracy and freedom that Europe makes. And that is, they are the ones who are the biggest warmongers in the world around us. Their only contribution to world peace is 2 world wars, in which many colonial armies died, fighting their own territorial imperatives and their own territorial ambitions. This is something very important for the rest of the world to understand. And Trump had made that statement in his very first term, that why must the United States bear the burden of managing NATO, and that too against enemy called Russia, which no longer existed as USSR. Actually, Putin made
but then you also lose the... It's all very good and very idealistic. But you also...
It's not idealistic.
It is idealistic.
It's realistic.
No, it's idealistic.
Because
the problem is...
It frees up America from many of its entanglements of European shenanigans.
No.
That's what
No. See, you're trying very hard, Vibhuti, to find a reasoning in this. To you, I would say... To you, I would say that I would agree. I would agree that to some extent that he's been consistently wanting to get out of NATO. He's been consistently critical of NATO. He has called it a failure. NATO has refused a no-fly zone. Now he's getting very angry, right? But America also needs NATO, because without NATO, what will happen to all the American bases in Europe?
There was a fabulous discussion 12 years ago on PBS, where I was also invited. And I said, America must withdraw being a global...
No, but what happens to all the... What happens... No, reasonably asking. Then you leave Europe for Russian play, the only major power with huge... And see, she's so happy. Tatiana can't help laughing. She knows I'm...
Come on.
No, but because that's what happened. See, Tatiana, you guys are the experts, I'm not, but you know that Europe has really pulled back on defense spending, and it does not have that power projection ability. Now we are told that Germany, big countries in Europe, are beginning to rethink their defense budgets, but they have been very, very. They've left it to NATO, left it to the America to fund that. But why are you denying that NATO? Why was NATO created? NATO was created to stop the Soviet Union from walking into Western Europe.
Not just NATO.
NATO was created. NATO was created to stop Soviet intervention in Western Europe. Now, the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, right? And why did NATO expand after that from 12 members to 32 members? What was the reason? To block you. Especially with a super aggressive Vladimir Putin, getting every opportunity and showing and bearing his intentions and getting absolutely ready to walk into Europe if not stopped. Now, this is working out very well for you. You're benefiting in every way. You're very happy because you're getting the oil money. You are seeing the global power dynamics change. You're seeing America getting desperate, and now you're seeing the end of NATO. You must celebrate. I mean, this is absolutely, I think sometimes I've begun to believe this theory that Putin had a role in getting Trump in office. Abhijit, if you look at the amount of work, if you see the amount of hard work that Trump has done to make Putin into the -- player in the world, Abhijit, and Russia, leaving Western Europe out of it. It's incredible. Tatiana, Tatiana, you...
I wish I could agree with you, Arnab. No? I wish I could. Unfortunately, the notion that Europe would be so to speak, Russian for the taking? Is that what you're going for? It's a little bit far stretched because they've, you're very right. Of course, NATO was created to stop the Soviet threat, but so was the actual, what was it called, the Northern Belt, under the Eisenhower Doctrine. The US started expanding into Arab states with the same reason. So what we're seeing right now, for instance, the dependency of the Gulf state on American military, on American supplies of military equipment, is the direct result of that as well. It was the attempts to stop the Soviet expansion into that region as well. Yes, Soviet Union broke apart, but you were very right. We saw just the remaining, the paradigm stayed the same. The Soviet threat became the Russian threat. Just as soon as Russia actually got a leader, a president, who didn't want Russia to become part of the US club, who saw a future for Russia as an independent state. So the notion that Europe would be, Russian for the taking should the US withdraw, it is far-stretched, and I do believe that this, threat to withdraw from NATO, which is, in its essence, an American war club. It's not just a war club. Two-thirds of it.
You're enjoying all of what's going on. It's working out for you.
Look, come on. The withdrawal from NATO would mean the end of NATO because...
Yes, it is the end of NATO.
Absolutely.
It is the end of NATO. I thank you for saying so, yeah.
Doesn't mean that Europe will stop buying American arms, that Europe will stop depending on American oil. Of course, Europe doesn't like...
Yeah, but it is not a strategic alliance.
What, NATO?
No, you can buy all the arms you want, but you will not have American support. There is going to be no NATO. So NATO is going to be over, right?
There is going to be no NATO because it's not going to have the money to exist.
If you ask me today, I don't think there's a NATO today either. NATO was over the day you failed to protect Ukraine. I mean, not you, as in Dr. Pekin, what do you think? Dr. Zachary disagrees with me, I think. Yeah, Dr.
Well, I mean, thanks, Arnab. Ukraine is not a NATO member, so the fact that NATO
but you sort of dangled the carrot in front of them that you would make them a NATO member.
I think we need to provide just a little bit of context here of what's going on right now, which is that Donald Trump is in a difficult political position. He is in a war of his own choosing in the case of Iran. He is dealing with a long-standing peace process between Russia and Ukraine that has yet to reach a resolution, and he needs a win on that front. And so he's venting. He's quite frustrated. And there is this sense, of course, that, the United States has been there for the Europeans on an issue that, affects their security in Ukraine much more than it affects America's security. And now European allies, for justifiable reasons, this is an extra regional intervention in the case of Iran. It's an illegal war of aggression. Also in the case of Iran, they have their reasons to stay out. There is this impression, nonetheless, that they're not there for them. But I think we need to frame this all politically in the current context as to why there's this eruption. It's not quite yet the end of NATO. There is, however, a longer-term risk, and we do need to acknowledge the fact that the United States and Europe have not always been natural partners for most of American history.
But you need them. But do you need the Americans? Do you need the Americans? Does Europe need, Dr. Zachary? Does Europe not need NATO? Okay, it's not over yet, but you will admit that if America moves out, it is the end of NATO. And that's going to be a huge headline. The world's single most powerful military alliance, the only military alliance which has been seen to be a buffer and a counter to Russia's strategic expansionism.
I don't see, Arnab, the United States withdrawing from NATO right now. Even if Donald Trump wanted to do it seriously, he can't do it alone. He needs the support of Congress in order to do this. So I don't see this right now. This is a longer-term issue that Europe needs to worry about the fact that
but Dr. Zachary, can Europe afford to tell Trump, okay, you want to walk out of NATO? Okay, let's close the shop. Can they afford to do that? Let me ask Mark this. Mark Mark is a big Trump supporter. He's senior advisor, Defense and Security Department at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Virginia. Mark, can Europe afford to tell Trump, who is threatening to get out of NATO, that it's all right, you can go and we'll handle things on our own? Can they afford to do that?
Neither thing is going to happen. The Europeans will not tell the United States to go take a hike. In fact, they're going to do the opposite. They're going to find some way to mollify Trump. Rutte has been very, very good at that. And this was just Trump's daily temper tantrum. It'll be over tomorrow.
What did you say? This is a temper tantrum.
Because it's a
the President of the United States of America gets up in the morning and says, I'm getting out of the military alliance that's called NATO, and that's a temper tantrum. Mark, how can you say that?
That's exactly what it is. Because if you read,
of course not. It's not a tantrum.
His postings, I mean, every day it's something different. It's what he felt that morning when he got out of bed. And now we're going to have he's going to give an address to the nation, and he's going to outline the end of the war. You know, the whole thing with NATO will be forgotten. Remember Greenland, right? Greenland, you know, for 1 week it was at the top of everybody's agenda. Oh my God, the United States is going to invade NATO, and then it just sort of goes away. So it's not going to happen. The United States is going to be part of NATO. Now, it might be that the United States, and I think it probably will, maybe pull some forces out of NATO, maybe realign forces, push forces further east. But the United States will be in NATO, and you know, we're Europeans. We're stuck together.
Okay. By the way, I'm joined by the spiritual advisor to President Trump, Pastor Mark Burns, who's he's just blind about Donald Trump, you know. And I can only tell you he's probably the second most important person in the world right now, because Donald Trump needs a lot of spiritual advice. Lot of it. I hope you're spending time with him, calming him down and reading to him and telling him and explaining things to him. But before I come to you, Pastor Burns, on a serious note, Abhijit, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow morning when Trump goes India time 6:30 in the morning with a pre-announced big announcement? He's been saying, I'm going to make a big, huge, full caps announcement tomorrow. What is the announcement tomorrow, you think?
See, first of all, I think we have to be very careful about Mr. Trump. We should not pay attention to what he says. We should look at his actions, because he says a lot of things that he has no intention of doing. Secondly, I think he's not going to withdraw from this war. I think he's going to escalate further. I think the USS George Bush is coming into the region. More troops are coming into the region. So I think there's going to be an escalation. Now, when it comes to NATO, I think it makes no sense for the US to leave NATO, because then you lose access to all of Europe, the unfettered access that they have. And Trump says that they have to pay a lot for that. Well, you have to pay for the privilege of the access that you're getting. And when it comes to the bogey of Russia, that Russia it threatens Europe. Well, let me remind everyone that Mr. Putin actually wanted to join NATO. He wanted Russia to join NATO.
Yeah, he did.
And he would not do that if Russia posed a threat to Europe. So I don't think there's going to be any withdrawal of Trump from the war. I think there's going to be an escalation going forward.
You know, anything can happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you once again out here tonight that we will be going live to that at 6:30 in the morning tomorrow, India time, because one of the biggest talking points today is what Trump is going to do. And though people say things often end with an anticlimax, the big speculation right now, I'm going to get Abhishek Kapoor on that, our senior executive editor, is that Trump will follow up on his threat to move out of NATO. Now, if that happens, what happens to the world order? I want to go back to Professor Salvatore. Okay, Abhishek is there with us. Abhishek, what are you hearing right now about tomorrow?
What I'm hearing is that the actual announcement is going to be about United States withdrawing from NATO, the build-up for which we have already seen by way of statements coming in from President Trump himself and some from Pete Hegseth. But this has been in the making for a while, for almost a decade. The United States has consecutively every year been lowering the budget allocation to NATO from its side and asking Europe to chip in or to increase their share. And the latest trigger, of course, is the manner in which Europe really had this standoffish approach, and in fact statements that this is not their war, this is Trump's war, and let it be the case. So I think President Trump is responding in the manner that he does, which is to hit back as strongly as he can. And given the fact that the buildup was already there, most likely he's going to announce that the United States finally is withdrawing from NATO and is not going to be the member of the war organization post-World War that came up post-World War II anymore.
Well, all of this happening amidst contradictory signals. Yesterday, Mark, I was talking at this very time to the deputy foreign minister and the spokesperson of the Iran. Ismail Baghel was with me live, and he said that, and I was quite surprised actually, Mark, when he told me that we are directly in touch with the Americans. And I kept asking him, and are you doing this directly? And yesterday at the same time, there were two big interviews. One was given to Al Jazeera by Arakchi, the foreign minister, and the other was by Ismail Baghel, Arakchi's deputy to the Republic Media Network. And in one, the foreign minister said that he's getting direct messages from Witkoff. And in the other, without naming Witkoff, the deputy foreign minister of Iran told Republic that they were directly in touch through Pakistan, which was acting as some kind of an intermediary. And when I asked him what kind of messages you got from the US, they said they were expansionist, they were I don't remember the words, but he sort of rejected it. But he did not deny that there was direct contact. So if I'm reading things together, I'm going to get out of NATO. Statement one, I'm going to take 2 weeks. Or we're going to decide in about 2 to 3 weeks. We're not going to be longer than that. That was the statement of Trump and Marco Rubio also that came in some time back. And as I'm reporting this tonight, we have one more statement that has come out from Marco Rubio, and I'm reading it. He says, if we've reached a point where the NATO alliance means that we can't use those bases, that in fact we can no longer use those bases to defend America's interests, then NATO is a one-way street. NATO is simply about us having to defend Europe. But when we need their help, they don't help us. Then why are we in NATO? Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars over the years, millions of dollars, and all these American forces stationed in the region if we can only use, when we need them, we cannot use those bases? So I think there's no doubt after this conflict is concluded that we are going to have to re-examine that relationship. There are messages being exchanged. There are talks going on. There is the potential for some direct meeting at some point. He's talking about the Iranians now. We're always going to be open for that. But we're not going to be, what President Trump is not going to allow is that he's not going to allow fake negotiations to be used as a delay tactic to buy more time, to buy themselves space. So both sides now, Marco Rubio today and the foreign minister of Iran yesterday, Mark, are confirming that negotiations are on. I think it's a big statement there, Mark, because yesterday's statement by the foreign minister, deputy foreign minister of Iran, followed by the statement of Marco Rubio today, both confirming that talks are on. Now, how are we to read this? This seems to be a breaking news development. What do you think, Mark? Let me get your comment on that.
Well, I think this is very encouraging. We've known for some time that there were talks going on for at least the last week or 10 days. Yes. It wasn't clear who we were talking to and whether that represented the Iranian government. The fact that the government has acknowledged that they were at least receiving those messages is good news. It means that there is a negotiation going on. The United States put out its goals. Iran doesn't accept those, but that's encouraging. Now, the one thing that worries me, and I think many people, is whether the government is really in control or whether it's the Revolutionary Guards and that they won't accept any sort of compromise. But we'll see how that plays out.
But obviously, they take them very seriously. Tatiana, how do you read this latest statement of today from Marco Rubio?
As an absolutely direct, that's a very direct message. And that's exactly what I was talking about just earlier. NATO is a US war club. The US pays 2/3 of its total defense spendings. So that is a very direct message. Look, this is our club, and these are essentially our bases. This is our personnel. So that is a bargaining tactic. He is threatening to pull out of NATO because he wants those bases, because he wants the possibility to use the bases that are a strategic value to the US. That's exactly the reason why NATO exists at all, because those bases are strategically important to the US. And, that makes perfect sense.
No, I think he's using NATO as a bargaining chip right now, Salvatore, because what's going on is that he's saying that I need NATO to help. That's what he's basically saying. I need NATO to help. And he knows that Iran will be in a stronger position if NATO begins to continue to look the other way. So he needs somehow to put that maximum pressure on NATO to get into the game. Salvatore.
Look, Arnab, you have to remember that NATO doesn't exist so that Spain can defend the United States. NATO exists so the United States can defend Spain and Poland and the Baltic states and Romania. NATO exists as a U.S. security guarantee to Europe, not as a European security guarantee to the United States. Now, if European countries are not even willing to go just that little way to allow their airspace to be used by the United States for its own national interest. And let's be clear, the war in Iran is in the American national interest, not in the European interest. It's in the American national interest. But if European countries won't even go so far as to allow their airspace to be used in the American national interest, well then, legitimately, an American president's going to say, why are we providing a one-way security guarantee to Europe? Now, I think it's very unlikely that the United States will actually withdraw from NATO. Instead, there will be a threat to withdraw from NATO. There will be I will withdraw in 100 days unless my demands are met. There will be grandstanding around it. The security relationship is so deep that it's not going to disappear overnight. But I think Trump is making a point that it's Europe that depends on the US.
Pastor Mark Burns is back. Pastor Mark Burns, this is not the Trump you were talking about. Literally a president who's begging NATO to help, who is having to get into negotiations with the same people he said he would overthrow, and who is sending desperate messages through Witkoff, as has been corroborated by the foreign minister, deputy foreign minister of Iran on Republic yesterday, that, they've got to find an end to the war. So there's a terrible situation that your disciple, your spiritual disciple, is in. I feel that's very sad, the situation he is in, and I'm sure you wouldn't have liked to see him in that situation.
Well, first of all, it's good to be back, Arnett. Your mischaracterization of the president begging NATO for help, that is preposterous. The United States of America is NATO. And so we all know, unfortunately, NATO doesn't have the power or the strength without the full might of the United States of America. Listen, what you see here is President Trump operating peace through strength. That's just the bottom line. It's perplexing to me that the whole world, not the whole world, but some of you out there, a few of you out there that are constantly forgetting the 47 years of terror led by this regime, 47 years of innocent lives that have been killed outside of Iran, not including the hundreds of thousands of Iranians themselves have been killed and oppressed by this regime. It's just amazing that you're forgetting all of the evil that has taken place. I was at CPAC with Matt Schlapp and Mercedes and all those amazing people, and the Crown Prince was there, Reza was there, he spoke, and I myself spoke. And to see all those Iranians, it was so jam-packed with all those Iranians shouting and praising President Trump for what he is doing and what he has done to help set their friends, their families free. So it's amazing how we're forgetting all that. The President of the United States of America, nor the United States of America, do not need NATO. NATO needs the United States of America, but it's just only by right, because its trait is more effective, not of the United States of America, but it's more effective to...
Then why is it being reported in your media? Why is it being reported in your media that your President Donald Trump Donald Trump has directed J.D. Vance to communicate privately that he's open to a ceasefire as long as certain U.S. demands are met, including opening the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, I find you a very strange person to be a man of peace, because you have written an article in the Telegraph. Let me tell you what he's written, Tatiana. I was quite shocked and disappointed. He writes that Trump has a spiritual obligation to bomb Iran. That's what he said. Abhijit, did you see that? He said, yes, Trump has a spiritual obligation to bomb Iran. And he compares the US strikes to stopping a rape. And let me remind you, sir, that on the very first day of the war, you killed 170 girls between the age of 7 to 12 in a school in Minab.
Let me respond to
and now you say there was a spiritual obligation to do that.
Let me say this. Number one, I didn't write that article, but I did say this, and I'm going to stand by it. I did say it was the President Trump's spiritual obligation not to bomb Iran. That's not what I said. That's what the writer stated. I said it's the President's and the United States of America's spiritual obligation to defend the voiceless. That's what spiritual diplomats are. Again,
okay,
you were talking, yes, those children, let me finish my complete statement. It is horrible that we have casualties of war that take place. America is all too familiar. All nations are familiar with the accidental deaths of innocent people. But the reality of it is this: stopping the regime that has terrorized not only the Iranians, not only the innocent people that live in Iran. That's the point that I made. It is our obligation. It would be your obligation as a man. If you saw a woman being bullied or raped or hurt by another man, it is your obligation to put a stop to that, put your life in harm's way to protect that innocent.
It is not our obligation to lie. It is not our obligation to lie. And the same Telegraph article, Pastor Burns, which says that Pastor Burns, that same Telegraph article says that you, Pastor Burns, you, Pastor Mark Burns, you speak to the president every week. The Telegraph article, okay. So I'm straying away from the military.
I'm killing innocent people. I'm sorry, you are okay with beheading women. I'm sorry, you are okay with the consistency of that evil radical Islamic regime that is killing innocent people. That is not Islam. What they did.
See, you bring a religious angle to everything.
That is some evil that comes from
you see, Abhijit is bringing a religious angle to everything. That's
is a man enough, spiritual enough to go and do the hard decisions. Did he want to go to war? No, he did not want to go to war, but he wanted to protect the innocent lives.
Abhijit, feel free to come in.
He wanted to protect the innocent lives in America.
If the US has a spiritual obligation,
that includes India.
If the US has a spiritual obligation to uplift the oppressed and liberate the oppressed, why aren't you doing a goddamn thing about Tibet? What are you doing about Tibet? What are you doing about the people who are oppressed by Pakistani terrorists? Right? It's all about convenience, isn't it? It's all about convenience. If it's about liberating the people of Iran, then why are you bombarding them? Why are you murdering them? Why have you killed 170 schoolgirls?
We tried.
Are you going
to talk about the 40,000 people that the Iranians killed? Talk about that. Let that come out your mouth. Let that come out your mouth. You want to keep talking about those children, and yes, my God, that's horrible.
What about Tibet? Why don't you say anything about Tibet? Why don't you liberate Tibet? Because you can't. You're scared of China, aren't you?
You're scared of China. 20,000 missing children in Ukraine that Russia has stolen.
Whatever happens, he always goes to evil and massacre to justify anything done by Donald Trump. If we were talking about Ukraine right now, I would be listening to a story about thousands and millions of dead Ukrainian children that are apparently on the top of Donald Trump's agenda. Let us put it all again into perspective. First of all, I would like to correct, with all due respect, our Australian counterpart. NATO does not exist to protect Europe. NATO exists to threaten Russia and China. I am very sorry we're still explaining this in this way. It's not about protecting Europeans. There's nothing threatening Europe. If it weren't for NATO expansion into the east that went directly contrary to previous agreements, we would not have been in the situation in Ukraine. And I'll leave some time for Pastor Burns to tell you the devastating stories about the dead children later, because apparently, of course, everybody cares about Ukrainian children. Look, it is very simple. Again, we can't forget about the dependency on American arms supplies. Donald Trump, and I'm not going to say that he's going to come out tomorrow because, first of all, Arnab, let me tell you one thing. Probably best to keep in mind that 6 a.m. Indian time is still April 1st in the US, so still April Fool's Day. Might be, useful to keep in mind. So whatever he comes out and says
things can't get so trivial. I I really hope they haven't.
Oh, come on. Why not? Why not? This is Donald Trump. He's going to manipulate social media. Come on.
He's not a 5-year-old, is he? He's not a 5-year-old.
No, he's very successful at creating hype out of nowhere. It pays him well. We were just discussing, a week ago, we were discussing the massive trades that were made.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Come on.
I'm going to go back to Pastor Burns in just a moment. I want to go back to Zachary here. Again, I go back to tomorrow's point. Pastor Burns, just coming back to you in a minute. Tomorrow is going to be some announcement of a kind. I think this pressure is being put. It's on Europe to now decide how to respond.
Look, if I'm the Europeans at this point in time, and of course, as you just said, we don't know what Trump is going to announce tomorrow. It could be, anything ranging from some kind of a threat to withdraw from NATO all the way to a nothing burger. But if I'm the Europeans, I want to give Donald Trump a win of some kind. And I think that it's essential that the Europeans make it clear that they do not plan to be an obstructionist force as it relates to ending the war in Ukraine. That has been a peace process that's been going on for some time. Negotiations are significantly advanced on that front. There's every opportunity that the Europeans could play here, not just to apply and call for applying more pressure on Russia, but also to find ways to incentivize the Russians to compromise by, for example, threatening to lift certain, or rather offering to lift certain sanctions and to resume certain oil purchases from the Russian oil and gas purchases at this point.
So Europe can
not
get
to
away.
the point where it makes them so dependent on Russia again, but at least to allow Europe to diversify its portfolio a little bit more, to enhance its own strategic autonomy, to diversify away from the United States of America. So if I'm Europe right now, you got to be thinking out for number one. And that's one way of doing it. If you call yourself a strategic actor, you need to be able to offer carrots and not just sticks. And we've not seen enough of that from Europe so far, and it has caused the United States to be very, upset at Europe, basically, for whether rightly or not, they're perceived as being an obstructionist force at this point. So Trump needs a win. I'd say try to give him one on an issue where, there's already been substantial progress made on the diplomatic front.
No, I understand that. Dr. Bacon, I think you're right. And, Pastor Mark Burns, if you see the kind of language being used there, by our expert in France, it's more on the lines of you got to handle Trump. rather than actually make any concessions, you got to appear to be appeasing Trump. It's not statecraft. It's about handling an errant child who can throw a tantrum, and you just need to make him feel good. Give him a toy to play with for a while. But that's so. See, I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth, Pastor. That's the way people are beginning to deal with the American president.
20,000 children have been kidnapped in Ukraine by the hands of the Russians. 40,000 people in the last several months in Iran have been killed and massacred. All of this is about the evil regimes that happen around the world. Listen, Iran would not take the president serious if he did not mean what he says, and they do. The reality of it is, this is what peace through strength looks like. We want to protect the innocent people of Iran. I'm sorry you're not here in America and you don't see the beautiful Iranians that are shouting all over the world, praising President Trump for what he's done, because that evil regime for 47 years led the sponsor on terrorism around the world, not just to the people of Iran, but to the people around the world. That includes India. And so the reality of it is, this is something that had to
includes
be done.
India in what way?
And this is
includes India in what way?
Because if Iran gets nuclear weapons, sir, you're now under the thumb of another dictator regime.
So I think,
like
Professor
China,
Mark Burns, for your kind information,
let me finish my statement, for your
kind information. See, the problem is, Professor Burns, just to give you a sense, I know, but I can't let you get away with statements without fact, without basis, without information. You need, when you're on an Indian network, you're going to have to speak with more respect than that.
Is in danger.
Sir,
if Iran has nuclear weapons, the whole world, that includes India. You are a part of this world, are you not? So that includes India. If Iran has nuclear weapons, they will bully their will.
Pastor, I find your arguments laughable, and you have very little knowledge of geostrategy.
That you're ignoring the innocent people in Iran.
So first of all, you do not know how big a nuclear power India is. You do not know the size of our army, our military, our air force, and our economy. You have a very Trump-like, sort of disorder of only looking at things your way. And there are reports that your
president
sir, there are
these bullies and took them out, and not just with words. Peace through strength means action, and all our enemies around the world know that that's the kind of a president you're dealing with. We do not wish war. That is not our desire. I do not wish war. There's things that needs to happen here in America. We are America First policy, and we are America First government. But that's what America First is, to take care of the American people. That means eliminate the threats before they eliminate us.
Anyway, Pastor Burns, there are reports that you're... Now I heard you, now you hear me.
Russia and Iran,
I heard you, and I request you to hear me. What I would like to say this, and you please hear me loud and clear, Pastor Burns, that, and don't mind what I'm about to say, but there are reports that your spiritual justification for this war mirrors the language which is being used inside the American military itself, including a complaint from a service member that a commander told troops that Trump had, quote unquote, and everyone on can hear this, been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth, unquote. The Military Religious Freedom Foundation received over 200 such complaints. Pastor Burns, if soldiers are being sent to war in the name of triggering the apocalypse, is this a spiritual obligation or a spiritual apocalypse? You need to think about this, because you are believed to speak to the president every week. That's why I had to tell you this. And as far as threats to India is concerned, believe me, Iran has taught you a lesson. And as far as you're concerned, you would be well advised to know we are 10 times bigger than Iran.
Iran has not taught nothing a lesson other than the fact that this is what it looks like when you're a regime that kills innocent people. When you kill innocent people and you threaten the world, especially America, with terrorism, this is what happens.
Okay,
this is what
ladies and gentlemen, I have to...
Now, let me just say this part concerning what you said concerning Christ.
Yeah,
no, I don't know anything about this Armageddon. What I do know is this, that the President of the United States of America has a spiritual obligation to defend the voiceless and the defenseless. That includes the innocent people in Iran who are thanking President Trump for delivering and removing the evil regime.
Thank you very much for concluding that sentence.
And happy anniversary to my parents.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that Pastor Mark Burns is a great evangelical, televangelist, pastor, politician, and self-styled spiritual diplomat, but I don't think he knows anything about diplomacy and geostrategy, what's happening on the ground. And when I'm back, what's going to happen in that announcement tomorrow? Will he call the war off with no deal and no win? Will he retreat when I'm back?
Time for a quick breather. Arnab will be right back with the debate.
Powered by Century Ply Club Prime. रहो बेफिक्र.
जब अपना कोई मूव किसी को मूव करता है ना यार, फील आ जाती है. भाई तू अपना है, तेरा सफर मुझे भी करना है. तूने प्रूव कर दिखाया यार, anybody can dream. मुझे लगा मैं नहीं, पूरा का पूरा मूवमेंट चल रहा है. Breathable fabrics, awesome comfort, effortless style, AD from the House of Arvind.
In the India Today Best Universities Survey, India's #1 ranked universities in various streams are JNU Delhi, Amity University, AIIMS Delhi, IIT Delhi, and National Law School, Bengaluru.
प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो मिलाओ और खाओ
8 मिनट में तैयार।
क्या टेस्ट है सबका राजा आर प्योर मसाला।
Join IIHM, International Institute of Hotel Management. To know more about ECHAT exam, call 98310 50,000.
Director, the taste of success.
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए
From the Republic Media Network headquarters, it's time for Arnab Goswami on the debate. Arnab Goswami on the debate.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, will the war end tomorrow? Will the war be announced to go into a new chapter tomorrow? Will America pull out of NATO, or will Trump pull out an April Fool's joke on all of us? Ladies and gentlemen, you can never tell. But US dollars, this is the check paid by Americans for the decision of their president to eliminate Ayatollah Khamenei and replace him with another Mujtaba Khamenei for carrying out 15,000 bomb and missile strikes across Iran, and yet leave that enriched uranium wherever it is, deep in the bunkers somewhere in Iran, because there is no way the 81st Airborne Division of the US can get it out. You kill 170 innocent girls in Minab, but the IRGC announces they are in firm control and as much in more control of Tehran as they were on the 28th of February. Ladies and gentlemen, in that sense, the question will be asked, what has Trump won at all? Has he won anything? This is a war nobody wanted besides the close Trump advisors and possibly, in fact, certainly Israel. This is a war they planned without a plan for an exit. And as we know from military history, you can start wars, but you cannot control where they end. And a similar situation is now being faced by a very confused Donald Trump. Recently, in an interview, Trump made a statement. He said, "We have completely changed the Iranian regime. Regime change has happened." And he said, "We still have some targets in Iran, and if necessary, we will return to strike them. We will withdraw from Iran quickly, and I will not set a timetable for that." If I read all his statements over the last 72 hours, what I believe is the Americans are desperate for an exit. The Americans are desperate to call what is called an off-ramp. They want a sideline discussion. Some people call it backroom diplomacy. Some people call it clandestine diplomacy. Some people call it intelligence diplomacy. But Tehran is not budging. Tehran is keeping the pot boiling. The strategy seems simple for the Iranians. Keep shooting drones at energy and port infrastructure of Gulf countries, and for all the countries who continue to provide bases to America. The heavy-duty THAAD and Patriot missile systems are not meant for this kind of asymmetrical warfare. This is asymmetrical warfare, and as America knows, asymmetrical warfare, they lost when it came to the situation in Afghanistan and on the ground in Vietnam. And with with a large adversary like America, the only way for Afghanistan and Vietnam and now Iran to fight is make the battle asymmetrical. And that is the reason. This fear of Iran is the reason why the NATO countries are not committing, why Spain, United Kingdom, or Italy are not committing the use of their airspace or their bases to fight Iran, because they know they will be hit back. And that is the reason why Trump is making the statements threatening to walk out of NATO, trying to use this as a bargaining chip to somehow get NATO back on his side so that he has some strength to go into those backroom negotiations with Iran, which, as the Iranian minister told us yesterday, Ismail Baghail, are already on. So, ladies and gentlemen, on the one side, the present situation is the Arab countries are facing the brunt of a war they never imagined would come to their doors. Nobody in Dubai thought. Nobody thought that the war would enter their homes and their apartments. And on the other hand, they have Trump asking for a return check. This economic distress which has been generated by this war is being felt far, far beyond the Persian Gulf. I have debated more than a couple of times about how the impact of this war would be on the global economy, how long drawn it would be. And experts on our programs have said that the estimation is 6 months to 1 year. Ladies and gentlemen, the question is therefore whether Trump is seeking the end of the war under pressure from his friends in the Arab region, especially Saudi Arabia. Whether Trump wants an exit from the war because he has realized that the cost of this war is not the gas price at the pump, which has crossed $4 for the first time yesterday. The cost is plummeting ratings. Look at Trump's approval ratings. It is minus 20, which is down 1.1 week points since last week. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the lowest for Trump. Lowest for Trump. Lowest for any war president. So all his supporters can make all the claims they want, but Trump is becoming very unpopular. And I think that Trump has realized that it is all not worth it. He has to get out. That is why the scapegoating attempts from Pete Hegseth to Caroline Leavitt. Caroline Leavitt, ladies and gentlemen, Caroline Leavitt, can you blame 27-year-old Caroline Leavitt for failing to present a true picture in front of the president when a failed military strategy is written all over? You can't blame her. But Trump will blame her. Trump will blame Pete Hegseth. Trump will blame everyone but himself. The fact is, friends, that Donald Trump is proving to be an embarrassment for the United States of America. He came to the to the president's job, to the Oval Office a second time with the one promise of ending all wars. He never tries of claiming that he stopped 8 wars for which he demanded the Nobel, and then he stole the Nobel, most embarrassingly, from its recipient, who he did not even make the president of Venezuela, which he accepted. But like most presidents, there he is taking the Nobel and looking so pleased about it. But ladies and gentlemen, he has proved to be a very, very unpopular and failed war president. But there is one difference as far as war presidents go. Most presidents, war presidents, from Lyndon Johnson, Vietnam, to Richard Nixon, from Bush Sr. to Clinton, from Bush Jr. to Obama, they all won at least one re-election for themselves on the back of the war. Let me tell you, in the case of Trump, he's staring at a major loss in midterms. He is going to lose the midterms on the back of this war, and that probably explains his desperation to get out of this war. Every day this war continues, his chance of losing the midterms becomes more and more certain. Which is why I'm asking you, what do you think Trump will do? Exit NATO, end of the war, or nothing? He has to keep making announcements to keep himself in the headlines for a reason apart from his failure. If the announcement happens tomorrow of America pulling out of NATO, out of all the morass it finds itself in, or ending the war, America will know and the world will know for sure what the Wall Street has known for a while. And what is that? 4 alphabets, TACO. Trump always chickens out. I believe it will happen with the chickening out all over again. And only the difference is that Trump chickening out this time will come with a huge consequence for all Americans. When Trump chickens out, which he inevitably will do, the whole world order would have changed. And from the 27th, the day before the strike, 27th of February, to whenever he chickens out, my expectation is on or before the end of the first fortnight of April, he would have ruined America's position in the global order. America will not be at its strongest. Trump would have successfully, because of his lack of knowledge, experience, and composure, brought the USA down to its weakest. Let's debate.
Strait of Hormuz remains the flashpoint. US pushing to reopen the economic corridor with bombers on standby. While Iran determined to continue its leverage.
If Iran is wise, they will cut a deal. President Trump doesn't bluff and he does not back down. You can ask Khomeini about that. President Trump will make a deal he is willing. And the terms of the deal are known to them. If Iran is not willing, then the United States War Department will continue with even more intensity.
Trump earlier said the US could exit the war soon, without a nuclear deal, without freeing the Strait of Hormuz.
We'll be leaving very soon, and if France or some other country wants to get oil or gas, they'll go up through the strait and Hormuz Strait. They'll go right up there and they'll be able to fend for themselves. I think it'll be very safe, actually, but we have nothing to do with that. What happens in the strait, we're not going to have anything to do with it.
He now says he will consider ceasefire once Hormuz is open. After repeated snubs from European allies, the US now stands alone, struggling to free the economic corridor, which was ironically free before the war began.
This is not our war. We will not be drawn into the conflict. That is not in our national interest. And the most effective way we can support the cost of living in Britain is to push for de-escalation in the Middle East and a reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, which is such a vital route for energy.
With IRGC now gaining control over the government in Iran, Tehran is unlikely to back down anytime soon. So will Trump exit the war as the pressure mounts at this stage with no deal in hand but an empty win, or is the final blow still incoming?
We're seeing so much breaking news right now, so many contradictory signals, so many statements. I don't know what to make of it. I just want to share with you, IRGC in Iran says the Strait of Hormuz is decisively and dominantly under the control of the IRGC Navy. An oil tanker belonging to the child-killing and illegitimate Zionist regime branded Aqua 1 was precisely targeted in the missile battle of the brave IRGC naval forces in the central Persian Gulf and is currently burning. At the same time, the American media outlet Axios, citing sources as saying that Washington and Tehran are discussing a possible ceasefire agreement in exchange for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And President Trump is discussing the possibility of reaching an agreement with Iran with officials in and outside the administration. Yesterday, the Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister on my program told me that they were in direct touch with the Americans. And parallelly, the Foreign Minister also gave an interview to Al Jazeera saying that they are talking to Witkoff. So one thing is firmly established, at least 2 or 3 independent groups are saying there are talks going on. Nobody is denying that there are talks going on. Saurabh, first to you. I welcome Matthew Foley, editor-in-chief of the Washington Reporter. and he's joining us from Washington. Elik Lemolke, senior journalist from Atlanta in Georgia. Dean Baxendale, author, publisher, and from the Sunday Guardian. He's joining us from Canada. Chris Osborne, president and editor-in-chief of the Center for Military Modernization. He's joining us from the US. Dr. Sergei Markov, former advisor to President Putin. Thank you very much, sir, from Moscow. Einar Tangen, economic and political expert, live from Beijing. And our very own General G.D. Bakshi. Okay, Saurabh, what's going on here? Are talks on, and what is likely to happen tomorrow?
Absolutely, Arnab. The talks are on. This is what I'm gathering from the sources at the White House. And they have made some headway. And also, I want to reiterate that on your show, I had stuck my neck out and said the war will be over in 10 days. That deadline ends, the war is going to end before that. So that's going to happen. That's my sense from how the situation is. But I can also tell you that as the talks go on, both sides are also doing power projection in the sense that the attacks are also going on. So there are some strands within the IRGC who obviously are the hardliners who are trying for a tougher bargain, and that's the reason it's not that the complete ceasefire has happened, and that's obviously been recognized. But my sense is, and later, in fact, tonight, President Trump is scheduled to address the nation in the US, and he may announce that this war is over. Coming to, obviously, in every war, every conflict, there are strategic deliverables that you have to meet. And I would say that to a large extent, the sense here is that U.S. has met those strategic deliverables, and obviously
that is hard selling by the U.S. That is hard selling. That is no. 1 minute. Sorry, I'll come to you. I'll come back. 1 minute. I'll come to you. That is. I don't know. I'll come to the debate. We have all the time in the world out here. My question is, Chris Osborne, to go straight to you out there. Are there key victories that he can carry back to his audience and say, we got this by doing this in 5 weeks? Are there clear gains that he can showcase, Chris?
Yes, hello. Thanks for having me. Sure. There are some gains that can be highlighted in terms of the ability to weaken Iran's ability to use terrorist proxies and attack boats in the Red Sea or attack other targets throughout the Middle East. Certainly the Arab neighbors have been targeted as well. So there is measurable progress in terms of military gains, but that doesn't mean the challenges have disappeared either. There is a serious challenge, but my guess is the emphasis is on negotiations at the moment. The idea is to find a way to use the premise or the threat of additional force for the purpose of making peace, to ending this, particularly if there is a new regime or new leadership of some kind that presents less of a threat to the region. That's just my guess. I don't know. But what I think is that the emphasis is on finding a way to negotiate a settlement to avoid further escalation. Because further escalation is very dangerous for the region. It's very dangerous for U.S. forces for a lot of reasons, with the small boat threat and the mines. We don't know, or the U.S. or anybody doesn't really fully know how many ballistic missiles and how many drones are left, that the Iranians may still have those. Those are very high threat. Many of them are precision guided. So there's a very threatening military circumstances on both sides. And my guess is the intent is, I don't know, but my guess is the intent is to further negotiations.
Yeah, but this has not gone well, has it, Matthew? I mean, like, however much we want to see a silver lining in this, the fact of the matter is that Trump's popularity ratings aren't doing very well, are they? I mean, all the reports that 59% of voters disapprove his job as president. He's not hitting the popularity charts with what he's doing. Is that why he wants a quick exit, a negotiation?
Great to be back with you. By the way, Arnab, eventually we'll do your show and we won't talk about Iran.
One day.
Trump has never been reliably above 50% in polls when he was president. If you look back to February 27th, he was probably around 42, 43% national approval. He doesn't need that 50%. What I think that maybe he should do and could do in his address, I don't want to predict anything, but is announce something on energy policy. America is sitting on an energy gold mine, which is not always unlocked by American administrations. You were mentioning that price of gas is getting above $4. in a lot of parts of the country. So I would look for something like that. Obviously, there are two main groups that Trump is going to be talking to in this speech in about 9.5 hours. One is the American people, and one is the rest of the world. So I would expect something on energy in that announcement. I don't think that he'll pull out of NATO, but I do think that he is going to continue to express frustrations that he's had with NATO for decades. You see recently, United Kingdom, France, Spain, in his estimation, this is their battle flag. It's white flag of surrender. And I do want to say one thing to keep stock of where things are at for Trump domestically right now. With Republicans, I was just at basically the top conservative conference in America in Texas, CPAC, and he's still got the Republicans and his base on lock with basically whatever it is that he wants to do with Iran. But one thing with the Democrats that's very interesting is they're trying to figure out how to thread that needle, right? Because you want any country, you want your public to rally around the flag. But Democrats are showing no interest in doing that. You saw in Michigan, which is going to have one of the most important Senate elections, one of the top Democratic candidates is this guy, Abdul El-Sayed, whose staff seems to not like him, but they leaked a call of his right after the Ayatollah was blown to smithereens. And he said, I'm not sure I can celebrate this because there are a lot of people in Dearborn, Michigan who are going to be sad. Look, when Obama got bin Laden, I don't think that anyone was sad in the United States of America when we shot him when he was hiding out in Pakistan. So Democrats are going to obviously oppose probably whatever Trump does tomorrow, but keep an eye towards what he does to keep the Republicans and his base in line. And again, I would look towards some energy policy announcements in that speech tomorrow.
Well, is he on the back foot? Matthew's presentation, Einar, is that he is not on the back foot. Now, I would say that he is looking to be on the back foot because of one simple reason. Iran and America are talking and negotiating and backchanneling and having diplomatic talks, and both sides are setting terms. Neither side has done a ceasefire. Only America is desperately seeking NATO's help. So did anyone imagine? If I was to say this, I'd be saying this on Wednesday, the 1st of April, everybody would think that would be an April Fool's joke. Did anyone imagine on the 28th of February, Einar Tangen and G.D. Bakshi, that two countries, Iran and America, would be talking as equals after 4.5 weeks of a bloody conflict involving almost 25 nations of the world? Does that leave America stronger or weaker? Is my question, Einar.
It obviously leaves the United States weaker. I mean, I did not think that Trump would attack Iran. I thought there would just be another, show of force. Nothing too serious to kind of pull the Epstein files off the front page. But obviously he did it. He set a fire. Now he's telling the Middle East, who did not consult, and NATO, who he did not consult, that one needs to fight the end of his war and the other one needs to pay for it. I'm always interested in what the people on the Hill are saying. It's always nice to hear what the talk points are. Pointing to the Democrats and saying they're not being patriotic or something is nonsense. They haven't come together with a good plan. That doesn't mean that Donald Trump is ruling the roost. Here's a guy who's at an all-time low with independence. I ran campaigns. I can tell you, you need your base and you need the majority of independents in order to win. And right now, that is not going to happen. They're going in the other direction, $4 gas, all the broken promises, saying that he was not going to get in foreign wars, that he was going to pay attention to domestic prices, that he was going to make America great again. All the times that he, in the past, has talked about how silly and stupid it was to go into Iraq, how it was wasting American resources and lives, in an area that had no profit for the United States. What we're seeing unfolding is what we talked about some time ago. And this is The Apprentice, Washington edition, season 2, in which Donald Trump, surrounded by a bunch of his minions, is about to fire a bunch because he, as you pointed out, is never at fault. his 27-year-old spokesperson is at fault. Hegseth is at fault. Everyone is at fault except him. Of course, it's always him who should deserve the credit, who should get the Nobel Peace Prize. I want to give your guests some opportunity to talk, so I'll leave it there.
Yep. I want Dean, who was responding there, and Eric. Ladies and gentlemen, we are only analyzing here tonight whether Trump is under pressure and will do something to relent, if not retreat, or whether Trump will do something else to divert attention from the situation, because one strategy of Trump could be, Dean, that he has back-channel talks going on. There's too many headlines about it. I think it's very strategic for the Iranian minister to come on Republic, for another Iranian minister to go on Al Jazeera and say that the Americans are talking to us. I found that very strategic yesterday. In fact, I must say, I was very, very surprised, everyone, when Ismail Baghail told me, Arnab, they are talking to us. I think it was very deliberate. Those two interviews to Republic and Al Jazeera were within a couple of hours of each other. So Trump doesn't like this attention. He would have liked to do backroom talks, backroom. But since that's gone out in the news, he has got to do something to change the news cycle, maybe. So maybe what Matthew said, to give something to the American people who are burdened by the price rise, by the gasoline prices, by the cost of personal shipping, groceries, airfares. Maybe give them something. Is he under that kind of pressure to change the headlines? Dean, what do you think? You know the media well.
Well, thank you again for being on the show. Listen, I think that there's a lot of misreading of the calculus of the administration in the prosecuting this war against Iran. I think that the military targets have been successfully prosecuted at all levels by the American military. That should not be in debate. What is now in debate, and your question surrounds, is Donald Trump looking for the opportunity to change the channel? Donald Trump has no reason. The polls don't really matter. Donald Trump is not running for president again. Great leaders, from the perspective of taking on an existential threat that Iran has been and that Western leaders have not taken on for the better part of 40 years. And through appeasement, we've allowed this organization, this criminal organization and enterprise in Iran, to have great power and great influence on the Middle East and promote proxy wars through terrorist organizations for years. So I think Trump is going to stick with their plan. Yes, they are negotiating behind the scenes, but they're not going to acquiesce, and they're certainly not equals at the table.
What decides that? When you say so confidently, General Bakshi, that they are not equals at the table, on what basis do you say that? There are two countries, two sovereign countries, fighting each other like anything for the last 5 weeks. In a prolonged battle, neither side has won, and neither side has relented. So what makes them unequals?
Are you asking me the question?
Yes. Strategically speaking, maybe you can elaborate, and then General Bakshi will come in.
Listen, I think we set up the notion of the United Nations where we all have equal voices. What we've seen is those institutions generally degrade through power imbalance, primarily through China and Russia using their veto powers. I think in this case, there's no question the Americans are successfully prosecuting the battle and winning on all fronts. They've degraded Iran's capability, industrial capability, military capability, and quite frankly, political voice.
Then why negotiate?
Well, at the end of the day, we have to get to a resolution for the war and to find peace. And peace is not through this regime. Peace is going to be through the Iranian people taking back their country, as the NCRI and others are.
But when is that supposed to happen, Dean?
Pardon?
When is that supposed to happen, Dean? We've been hearing about Iranians taking back their country for a very long time. In fact, last 3 weeks, we haven't even seen Raza Pahlavi on television even once.
Well, of course, we're not seeing the Iranian people rise up when they are being constantly threatened with death. They just assassinated or killed 4 political prisoners and hung them in the last 2 days. So they're sending their messaging to the Iranian people. I think when the time is right, the political apparatus and people will come together, hopefully, to create a long-lasting democracy and a long-lasting peace in the Middle East. I think that's the desire of every Western democratic nation, no matter where they sit on the political spectrum.
So it's a very complex situation, General Bakshi. We can't take too many sides in this. But what do you think will happen tomorrow morning? What will Trump announce?
Arnab, the simple fact is that Trump has had it in this war. It was an absolute miscalculation, this war of choice, this unnecessary war for which his chief of counter-terrorism, Joe Kent, has resigned. His chief of intelligence, a former deputy chief of the CIA, has resigned because the president refused to hear the intelligence briefings. He said he found them an inconvenience. It is a war of choice. You got yourself into a jam. You were expecting a cakewalk like Venezuela, and he's been shocked. Iran has hit back, and how? This is the first time I have heard of the people of Iran being bombed into freedom and happiness. You killed 168 Iranian girls, and then you lecture us on Bucha, right? 168 innocent Iranian girls were killed. There is not a word of contrition, not a word of you are sorry about it, that it was a mistake, etc. You take it as your divine right to bomb third world countries. I'm afraid, sir, we are not entering the era of colonialism again. You have failed to subdue a middle-tier power like Iran. You forget about Russia and China, which are peer group military powers. You have failed, dismally failed, to subdue the Iranian military, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. They are hitting back. Yes, they started with 499 missiles per day. They are now down to 30 to 60 missiles a day, right? But those missiles are far more accurate. They are piercing through your anti-missile defenses, whether of Israel, whether of the United States. Look at the damage they have done, right? And now you, Donald Trump, realize with a shock that he's created a disaster for the global economy, including his own. He was talking of opening the Gulf of Hormuz. He cannot do that militarily. The military demand picture doesn't add up. And let me tell you, in the Second World War, Arnab, when the Americans tried the island hopping campaign, you know what were the casualties in the initial beach landings? 25 to 30% of the assault force.
You're saying the militarily
stand those kind of casualties?
Yeah, but did they assess this wrong? Now, this is not my analysis. It's been all over the media, Eric, that when this war started, you see, Pete Hegseth is the most outspoken on this conflict. But the military people, especially the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, they expressed their concerns. It's been reported in various media before, that Trump had been cautioned that any major operation against Iran will face challenges if it does not end quickly, because U.S. munition stockpile has been significantly depleted because of the defense of Israel and the support for Ukraine. And it's not just Kane I'm speaking about. It's according to Axios, Washington Post, others. Several Pentagon officials raised serious concerns in internal meetings about the risk of a longer drawn military operation against Iran. So the question being, Eric, that things are complicated, right? I mean, if the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff has warned that strikes against Iran could be risky, drawing America into a prolonged conflict, that means Pete Hegseth calculated that it would not. And eventually Pete Hegseth has been proven wrong. The chairman of the Chief of Staff has been proven right, because he had also said that there will be retaliatory strikes by Iranian proxies or a larger conflict that would require more US forces. So heads will roll, won't they, later, Eric? This is getting complicated every day, isn't it? I mean, all this information coming out now.
I mean, yeah, it is getting complicated. However, I don't think Pete Hegseth is panicking. I don't think President Trump is panicking. He just today he's sitting at the United States Supreme Court listening to court hearings. So I don't see a panic coming out of the White House. What I do see is a pressure campaign. I think that's the game plan. I think it's to continue the pressure campaign, continue strikes until you beat Iran in submission. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's what's going to continue to happen. I think as time goes by, we're going to see an increase of pressure strikes. Now, as far as munitions go, we do own the defense contractors that generate all the weaponry that everybody buys off of us.
Yes.
President Trump has several weeks ago increased by three times the manufacturing capabilities of missiles. So we are going to regenerate and we are going to continue to strike. Now, the question is how much longer can Iran go on? How many more strikes are they capable of sustaining? We're also getting reports here in the United States that the IRGC is in 100% total control over the government. So that's another factor to consider. Who is running the country? I don't think it's clear cut at this point. I think that there is inner turmoil going on inside Iran, and I think that's going to end up breaking that country at some point.
No, but my question was different. And I'd like to go straight to Moscow now, to Dr. Sergei Markov for a very strong Russia view. He's been former advisor to President Putin. Dr. Markov, now I would like you to look at this from a Russian point of view, and I would like to present one thought before that, which is that there was an argument which is going on. I think it's the Wall Street Journal which said this, that Trump was warned that an extended conflict can have significant costs on U.S. forces and munition stockpiles. And the newspaper had also reported, WSJ, that concerns were there about what will happen if this becomes a long conflict. It will limit America's ability to protect regional allies from Iranian counterattack, but also curtail America's ability to counter China in a future conflict. So this will have global consequences. If you look at the global order, the feeling is, even in the American media, that this is not a regional war, that it will have consequences. It's becoming a multipolar world where bigger countries, China, Russia, India, with big armies, big military spending, will change the balance of power. If an Iran can do so much, then how much would other countries stand up to a changed global world order? So two questions to you. How do you see this from a Russian perspective? And do you see a long-term impact on the world order once this is done?
You know, there are a few points of view in Moscow about this war, how it's happened. First, which most of the people agree, that of course it was not smart decision of Donald Trump. And this will be very costly to Donald Trump. In very negative relationship, the oil price will decrease more, and the gasoline price in the United States will decrease more, and as a result, popularity of Donald Trump will decrease, and as a result, he will lose November elections. He will lose control of the Senate and House of Representatives, and the result will be impeachment, and then probably Trump will be arrested. It could happen during 1 year, in fact. It's the mostly dangerous political scenario for Donald Trump. And then there are two mostly position about reason of Donald Trump to do it. One is very local, that it's interest of Israel, first of all, to crush Iran as a main enemy of not United States, but not enemy of Iran. And this comes not so much from the Israeli leaders, but first of all from Zionist, Protestant Christian groups in the United States of America, which is in the core of the political support on Donald Trump inside United States of America. So it's first version. Another version is global, that it's against China, that Donald Trump preparing for the big political battle an economic battle with China. And that's why he, first of all, cut supplying of oil from Venezuela by stealing president of Venezuela. Then he decided to take another resource of oil for China, is Iran. And also he will try to stop somehow oil coming to China from Russia, because it's also main supply. So it means that a big geopolitical game. What is right of them not clear yet. Maybe in the future we will know from the remarks of the different politicians who took part in those making decisions. But we, as a politician and expert, has to take into account both of these versions. And how it can also answering the question that you asked, what could be today, tomorrow morning in Donald Trump announcement. I think he will announce more or less his plan, which is now it's look like that his plan is to claim that America already won because the regime change already changed, and America won because nuclear capacity of Iran fully destroyed, and America won because fleet and aviation of Iran also fully destroyed. That's why he thought, okay, we won, we will stop this war, but not now. We will continue about 3 or 4 weeks. As I understand his plan to finish the war to the May 10th. Because it's 1 week before important visit to China. And also about Hormuz, he will say he will try, first of all, to resolve it by democratic way, by pressure on Iran. If not, he'll say, okay, we don't get oil from the Hormuz Strait. It's care of the countries who are getting oil from there. It's Europe, who does not like us and we does not like them. It's Asian countries. Okay, organize this protecting of tankers convoy. We, Americans, can be leader and organizer of this, but we will not take full responsibility for this. I think this plan will be announced by Donald Trump tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Indian time.
So the view from Moscow, Matthew, is that tomorrow morning, our time, evening your time, Trump will go and say we won and basically begin the countdown to get out of this. Our guest from Moscow also says that this was part of an economic battle that Trump wanted to fight with China for global supremacy, and that is why Venezuela, followed by earlier Greenland, and then Iran was part of a plan to be ahead in the global energy stakes. But if that does not happen, you see, Matthew, then would it be back to square one for Trump? I mean, I agree with him that Trump wanted to be ahead of China by controlling global energy supplies. Trump is not an unthinking person as people assume him to be. I believe he's played to a plan, but it's not worked to the plan, Matthew. In that case, what happens to Trump?
Yeah. So by the way, a great point by you, Arnab, and several others on American missile supplies dwindling, both because of support for Ukraine and the ongoing war there, and for support for Israel's missile defense going back to even last year, as well as in this conflict itself. So that could be another thing to look for Trump to announce today. That's been a priority of the administration, is rebuilding and resupplying, refilling America's missile capability. So that could be something else that would be interesting for him to announce. Going back to your point on the equal footing here, I don't think there's been a war in at least modern history where the other side's leadership and then their next tier of leadership and then their next tier of leadership and then their next tier of leadership has been vaporized in the span of 48 hours. So I think from that standpoint, we don't even know who is truly running Iran right now. Is it the Ayatollah who has been a cardboard cutout, who the Trump administration has been mocking relentlessly? It seems to be this guy. We don't know. Now, going forward to what Trump will say tonight or tomorrow night, our time, tomorrow morning, your time on that, I think, again, that domestic energy thing would be an obvious thing to start with, but also the missile thing. And then the thing to remember also, guys, Trump is walking and chewing gum. The reason why he black-bagged Maduro in the middle of the night was because he is prioritizing the Western Hemisphere, the Americas. Maduro was a proxy of Iran in our hemisphere. But Trump, keep in mind, is also saying that Cuba is teetering right now. So the global order, I agree, is being totally restructured right now. I also don't think that what's going on with Iran has him on the back foot, because Trump does not want long ground invasions. Again, we talked about this last week on this show. He came to power, he came to the presidency, in part because of his opposition to America's long, drawn-out wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't think that that's what's going to happen in Iran. He likes these very quick engagements and then get the heck out of there.
No, but for what purpose? I mean, the purpose can't be vaporizing leaders. See, I'm not discounting I'm not discounting the American air superiority in this, but Matthew, all countries in the world have intel, human intelligence, signal intelligence, satellite intelligence, space intelligence. All countries in the world have more or less the similar levels of ability to do precision strikes. It's nothing unique. Yes, America has shown the risk-taking ability to carry it out. But I don't think that winning wars is about killing individual leaders or kidnapping leaders. It's about meeting a longer-term strategic or defense target. Now, beyond the killing of leaders, what is Trump going to tom-tom, Matthew? How long will he say, I killed their leaders? Pezeshkian is there. He's very much the president. The foreign minister is there. The system is there.
So that is something that I hope he addresses in the speech, because you are right. Decapitation strikes forever, but at a certain point, you need to have a stable leadership structure.
Yes.
But this is honestly, I think, from America's standpoint, a long time coming, where you've had this global state sponsor of terror in Iran that has been threatening not just America, but the entire world. And I think that is part of why Trump is so disappointed in America's allies in Western Europe that have been threatened by Iran's terror proxies in Hezbollah, that have been striking at targets throughout Western Europe. What I think matters more than whether the UK, which is being overrun by gangs of grooming rapists in parts of London that Keir Starmer completely ignored when he could have stopped that, is what's going on in the Gulf. We talked last week about how countries like even Lebanon are declaring the Iranian ambassadors as personas non grata in their country. You see the UAE is saying, hey, we're ready to commit militarily to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That is what I think the Trump administration is focusing on far more than countries like Spain.
Let's have a quick round of counters before we close this. So first counter from General Bakshi, briefly, please. General Bakshi.
Arnab, this has been a seminal conflict which was to decide whether Donald Trump, with his bullying, will be able to push back the world into a unipolar world order. I'm afraid he's just failed. And what has emerged is a clear multipolar world order with Russia, China, Iran, North Korea standing out as strong, power centers in their own right, and which have not let America have its way. Its waywardness has been put under check, and a strong check at that. You see, it has paid a heavy cost in lives and in treasure. It has caused the world to almost slide towards an economic recession. Therefore, it was about time that Donald Trump was advised to call it off. And as you very rightly said, TACO, that's what has happened.
Okay.
He's been forced to call it off. It is a humiliation. It is an unwarranted loss of prestige.
Chris, somewhere, you see, there is...
It will never be the same again.
Two things, Chris, about the American military establishment, which people have grudgingly respected, has been the use of intelligence and the use of strategy. Now, many Americans, including General Mark Hertling, who was the commanding general of the US Army in Europe during the Obama administration, they're saying that this time there was no logistics, there was no strategy, and he said that America cannot kill its way out of this. There has to be thinking about different elements of national power, applied politics, policies, diplomatic. The criticism in America is that there wasn't enough deep thought before moving on this.
Well, I have to say, I'm not sure I fully recognize or agree with that. There very well could have been very deliberate planning, and there is a strategy behind this. And one of the key elements of this is called effects-based warfare, or the 5 rings. And the idea is to knock out command and control, supply lines, and then, of course, as was mentioned, the idea of decapitation strikes. And one of the points that was made that I think that is the most relevant is, where is the command and control? Part of the strategy is to knock out the command and control. So how centralized is the Iranian leadership? What is the Iranian leadership? Who's in charge at the moment? And that's part of the deliberate effort to potentially empower the opposition and derail any potential command and control for any leadership. We don't really know how degraded the IRGC has been. They may be extremely degraded, and the hardliners in charge may be dwindling. They may not have the command and control. So it's very much a strategic effect to achieve a result from the air, render an enemy unable to fight without destroying the infrastructure and avoiding the risk of casualties of any kind of ground or amphibious assault. That being said, the other point that was made is the American people and this administration, they don't have the appetite for a long, protracted, on-the-ground ground war. We all remember Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I think the point would be to achieve a specific military effect quickly, and that is conceivable. That is very possible given what has not happened yet, and I think it's the threat of a potential very lethal short-term strike to achieve yet an additional military effect without having to have a prolonged engagement. A prolonged engagement, as was mentioned, is logistically very complicated. Who knows? Because commanders are always clear that there are contingencies and there's no clear signal, but it's unlikely there'll be a large staging area, a mechanized linear force that has a ground invasion. That wouldn't make tactical sense, but there are other options to achieve a even more specific military effect, even in the Strait of Hormuz, without necessarily something long-term. There's a lot that hasn't been used, and this air campaign to achieve a strategic effect seems to have been effective to a large degree.
Okay, Eric and Dean, repetitive strikes perhaps will not be effective now. The same headline repeated all over again, more strikes, more visuals, more videos of American action being put out. It's going to be counterproductive, right, Dean? So, when this is over, what's the headline, Dean, that Trump wants? What's the headline he wants?
Listen, I think that the headline that Donald Trump is looking for was mission accomplished. Whether or not mission accomplished means the decapitation of the regime's capabilities, as we said, from military industrial side is one thing. The other thing, though, as far as I'm concerned, this will be a failure unless we are able to get a new regime in place that is a democratic regime and a path to democracy for the Iranian people. But I think Donald Trump will certainly get his headline. I think this is going according to plan.
Okay.
And I do believe that the U.S. has laid out their plan through their strategic security document.
What's the headline he'll get? Not the headline he wants, but the headline he'll get.
What do you think
the headline that he has successfully prosecuted the war, and ultimately have had regime change. On the left, we'll get the counter narrative to that, naturally, which would be that Donald Trump has failed in his engagement and has put America at risk diplomatically with all its partners in the world.
Arnab?
I think he met his strategic objectives, and military power matters. That's what, and that his bold decision making worked. That's what he'll try to build, and that's what he will expect in a headline.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll close it at that because I'm awfully short of time. But there's a lot of interest. If you have interest in the news conference tomorrow, our live streams are up. You can watch us on anywhere on our live streams, on our apps. But I hope that you will open your television tomorrow morning to see not just the news, but the quick analysis that happens after that. Ladies and gentlemen, only for tonight. It's been a fascinating last 2 hours. Follow the coverage every second on Republic. Good night and goodbye.
Time for a quick breather. Arnab will be right back with the debate.
Powered by Century Ply Club Prime. रहो बेफिक्र.
हेलो लेडीज, आपके लिए है ये कंफर्टेबल सोफा, गर्मा गर्म चाय और वाईफाई. आराम फरमाइए, क्योंकि हमारा लेटेस्ट लिनन फैब्रिक कलेक्शन है ही ऐसा. वो क्या है ना, इन्हें देखने में और दिखाने में थोड़ा वक्त लगेगा. बंदों को लिनन पसंद है तो पसंद है. लिनन बाय अरविंद.
In the India Today Best Universities Survey, India's #1 ranked universities in various streams are JNU Delhi, Amity University, AIMS Delhi, IIT Delhi, and National Law School Bengaluru.
Join International Institute of Hotel Management. Call 983-10-50,000.
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद, ये तो है इसकी खास बात. वाओ मामा, क्या स्वाद है. अरे मेरे राजा, सबका राजा आरती और मसाला.
Director, the taste of success.
प्यास बुझाए, ठंडक लाए, सबको भाए जीरा सिप. MTH का जलजीरा जीरा सिप.
जीरा सिप, असली रिफ्रेशिंग, असली स्वाद, असली मजा.
MTH.
प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो, मिलाओ और खाओ. 8 मिनट में तैयार. क्या टेस्ट है, सबका राजा आर्नब मसाला.
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है. इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा. जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं. आदरणीय सभापति जी.
Time for a quick breather. Arnab will be right back with the debate.
जब अपना कोई मूव किसी को मूव करता है ना यार, फील आ जाती है. भाई तू अपना है, तेरा सफर मुझे भी करना है. तूने प्रूफ कर दिखाया यार, एनीबडी कैन ड्रीम. मुझे लगा मैं नहीं, पूरा का पूरा मूवमेंट चल रहा है. ब्रीदेबल फैब्रिक्स, ऑसम कंफर्ट, effortless style, AD from the house of Arvind.
In the India Today Best Universities Survey, India's #1 ranked universities in various streams are JNU Delhi, Amity University, AIMS Delhi, IIT Delhi, and National Law School Bengaluru.
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद, ये तो है इसकी खास बात. वाओ मामा, क्या स्वाद है. अरे मेरे राजा, सबका राजा आरती और मसाला.
Join International Institute of Hotel Management. Call 983-10-50,000.
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है.
सैंडविच, लस्सी और छाछ.
हर घूंट में चमकी चाट. अब बताओ, स्वाद आया.
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट.
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है. इसलिए
From the Republic Media Network headquarters, it's time for Arnab Goswami on the debate. Goswami on The Debate.
On the show tonight, Trump completely isolated among reports that he might be exiting NATO. At 9 o'clock tonight, he's called a big press conference. Tomorrow, will he end the war? Will he exit NATO or do nothing? Well, one of the things that makes the Republic Media Network different is the fact that regardless of whether the other media do it or not, whether they have the interest or the guts to do it or not, we will continue to report on things that you need to know about. And one of the things that you need to know about, ladies and gentlemen, is this whole Anil Ambani affair, right? This whole Arcom, Anil Ambani, case after case, case after case, case after case against Reliance Communications and Anil Ambani. And ladies and gentlemen, you have a right to know. You have a right to know that today there is a fresh CBI case against Anil Ambani. And I have both the FIR copy because I'm always very factual. Ladies and gentlemen, we're reporting breaking news tonight that Anil Ambani is in massive trouble again because there's one more case filed against him. One more case. And this one is a big case. Big case. This case alone is a 3,750 crore rupee case against Anil Ambani. And it has been filed by the Life Insurance Corporation of India. Ladies and gentlemen, big company. And that company takes money from people to insure their lives. And from that company has said today that Anil Ambani and Arcom, his company, has been fraudulently induced to subscribe to non-convertible debentures worth 4,500 crores on the basis of false representations, with a forensic audit highlighting fund diversion and misutilization. And they are saying today that Anil Ambani and Arcom have caused a wrongful loss of 3,750 crore to the Life Insurance Corporation. It is such a big story, ladies and gentlemen. Such a big story. You have a right to know about the story. And you have a right to ask why the rest of the media is not reporting the story. You have to ask that question too. Let me read out today what is written here. It is said, and this is a CBI FIR, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the Central Bureau of Investigation has filed an FIR. Complaint against Reliance Communications Limited, its erstwhile non-executive director and chairman, Shri Anil D. Ambani, unknown public servants and unknown others for committing offence under sections 120B, ladies and gentlemen, read with 406, 420. He's been charged under 420. He's been charged under 420 of the IPC and section 13.2, read with section 13.1D for the registration of a first information report against the accused persons. This entire complaint is with me, ladies and gentlemen. If required, we'll put it up on republicworld.com. It says, among others, that accused number 2, Shri Anil D. Ambani, was the non-executive director and chairman of Arcom at the material time, and as the promoter, director, and the most senior figure. By the way, Anil Ambani always says, I'm nothing, I was nowhere, all officials did it, I never had a role. But what does the LIC say? It says that as the most senior figure in Arcom's management, accused number 2, Anil D. Ambani. Anil D. Ambani exercised pervasive control and influence over the company's financial decisions, capital raising activities, and fund deployment. It also talks about the fraudulent inducement subscription to non-convertible debentures, gives absolute details, talks about default and non-payment, saying Arcom failed to honor its repayment obligations under both NCD subscription agreements. It speaks about specific fraudulent, underline the word fraudulent, acts and transactions. My God, it's terrible, terrible. Ladies and gentlemen, it talks about the systematic siphoning through intercompany deposits. It talks about the siphoning of funds through shell-related entities. It talks about the creation and write-off of fictitious debtors and receivables. It talks about misuse of sales invoicing, invoice financing, routing of funds through subsidiaries. These are such strong allegations. They include, and this is also breaking news, that he has been charged under section, they say that LIC says that he has committed an offense under section 420, which is cheating. 406 IPC, which is criminal breach of trust. And therefore, it is asked for an FIR to be filed, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a very serious matter signed by the LIC. Now, what is Anil Ambani doing? We are only getting to know. What I can report tonight, most truthfully, in as straightforward a manner as possible as the Constitution of India and my freedom as an individual and as a journalist allows me to do, I am sharing with you tonight that there are so many cases against Arcom and Anil Ambani. There's a Yes Bank loan fraud. There are 2 CBI FIRs relating to the allegations of loan diversion, bribery, and cheating of public institutions by ADAG companies. Then there is an SBI multi-blank Arcom fraud. But the CBI registered this FIR following a complaint from the State Bank of India. And this complaint is based upon a forensic audit report. It alleges large-scale diversion and misuse of loan funds through a very complex intercompany transactions between the years 2013 and 2017, causing a wrongful loss of 2,929.05 crores to the State Bank of India. Out of the total exposure, ladies and gentlemen, hold your breath, of 19,694.33 crores across a consortium of 17 public sector banks. My dear viewers of Republic, you have a right to know. And I'm happy to share with you that nobody can come between you and me, between Republic and the public. Nobody. Because you have a right to know, and we are determined to pursue the truth. He also has the Bank of Baroda Arcom case filed against him. This CBI FIR was based on a Bank of Baroda complaint alleging that Arcom and Ambani caused a loss of 2,223 crores. Punjab National Bank Arcom case, FIR filed on the 5th of March 2026. Additional case filed. This included exposure from the Union Bank of India. In fact, all the list of nationalized banks, all the PSU banks' names are in this list. And you know what I feel bad about? I feel bad about the fact that that is someone's money. That money is not even that of the banks. It's your money. It's hard-earned people's money, depositors' money. Depositors' money. Money that actually, eventually belongs to the citizens of India. And then there is now the 5th CBI case, LIC Arcom debenture fraud, registered March 2026, and which I just told you talks about false representations and a wrongful loss of 3,750 crores caused to the LIC. You have every right to ask tonight, why is only Republic reporting this in a big way? You have every right to ask that question. But let me assure you, viewers, nothing comes between the free media, the truth, and the people of this country. We are determined to report the truth to you because you have a right to know. And so there are also ED cases against him. There's the Arcom bank loan fraud case. The ED has filed 3 ECIRs against Anil Ambani and has to date attached assets of 15,700 crores. Ladies and gentlemen, the ED has assessed the proceeds of crime at 20,000 crore rupees, with loans to Reliance Communication at 40,000 crore rupees. There's a Yes Bank case number 2. RHFL and RCFL allegations of money laundering, ladies and gentlemen. There's the Reliance Infrastructure case. The ED is probing an alleged diversion of 10,000 crores by Reliance Infrastructure to other group companies through an undisclosed private entity without it being named as a related party, a matter flagged to the Securities and Exchange Board of India. You must be listening to this and saying that if this is the case, then where is the headline in the other media? And my answer to you is, ladies and gentlemen, that's why I say there is only one independent media in this country. We owned, run, managed by professionals and journalists. There is also the RHFL fraud. Banks have alleged defaults of 7,500 crores to our Reliance Home Finance, with the ED alleging large-scale diversion of public funds. The SEBI found that rupees 12,487 crores in loans were disbursed to 47 shell companies between FY17 and FY19, with a forensic audit by Grant Thornton finding that the funds ended up back with group companies. What is going on in our country? What is going on? In our country today, someone takes a 10 lakh rupee loan, 1 lakh rupee loan, 10,000 rupee loan, he does not return it, the entire system will go after him. That's why what we are fighting for is justice. There is no hyperbole, there is no exaggeration, there is just the raw and undiluted truth that is being reported to you so that you can think and make up your mind for yourself whether we are doing public service or not. I believe we are doing national service, public service, a service to journalism, and we are performing our duty by reporting all this, and nothing will stop us. Let me assure you, viewers, assure you with all the conviction at my command and all the experience that I have of 3 decades as a journalist, that eventually nothing comes between the truth, the independent media, and the public. Then there is the Reliance Commercial Finance fraud. ED is probing alleged frauds of rupees 8,200 crores to Reliance Commercial Finance. Then there is the Reliance Power Forged Bank Guarantee, SECI. The ED is probing a fake bank guarantee worth 68.2 crores submitted by Reliance Power linked firms to win a solar power storage contract from the Solar Energy Corporation of India. Ladies and gentlemen, all of these are facts. Sometimes people tell me some people don't want the truth to come out, but to them I say, the truth are like skeletons. They tumble out unannounced. As long as there is Republic, you have a right to know, not just about the Anil Ambani case, but about every case. Whatever the vested interest, whatever the attempts at pressure, whatever, despite everything, you have a right to know. And that's why I'm starting this evening with a big story, that Anil Ambani is in trouble. Now, if some people say this is not trouble, it's their perspective. I can certainly say that he seems to be in a lot of trouble, and the agencies, the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate, are themselves being scrutinized and followed by the public and the courts. And so I believe that there will be justice soon. Justice and its just rewards and just deserts. Ladies and gentlemen, please support Republic, because you will find that in all these cases there is only one network that never keeps anything back. You see, news, ladies and gentlemen, is a strange thing sometimes in the hands of newsrooms. Some newsrooms choose to report. Some newsrooms choose not to report some things. Without any generalizations, I'm not pointing names out. I believe that any news organization that chooses not to report something deliberately, if there is an intention or malice behind it, is doing a bad thing. That is something I can assure you Republic will never do. Now, let's move on to our debate. And ladies and gentlemen, just before Trump's big announcement on the war tomorrow, and we are told at 6:30 he's doing a big announcement, the fact is, events even over the last 24 hours, they underscore the fact that Trump finds himself completely isolated. Key US allies, including UK, Australia, France, Italy, Spain, are all refusing to take any part in Trump's war effort. Keir Starmer today went on air telling the people of the United Kingdom that he believes it is Trump's war and he will have nothing to do with it. And he's getting a loud applause for that. These countries are denying US air bases, additional troops, and Trump is so angry and increasingly isolated in the conflict that he started that now he has put out one threatening note after another today, threatening to exit NATO altogether. Some people are saying that this announcement could come tomorrow morning. Some people have been anticipating something bigger, maybe an end to the war, but I personally believe that that's about a week away right now. Please remember, ladies and gentlemen, and read my lips on this. I expect, this is my assessment, I may be wrong, but I will share it with you, that I think Trump will exit perhaps a week from now. I'd be happy to be disappointed or surprised or contradicted if that happens tomorrow. But my own sense is he's going to start pulling back, starting tomorrow and ending about a week and a half from now. Here is what has happened, a quick update.
Although American bombers are seen taking off Britain airbase. United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer has made it clear they are not part of the war.
Been absolutely clear that this is not our war, or we're not going to get dragged into it. But I'm equally clear that when it comes to defence and security and our economic future, we have to have closer ties with Europe.
Key NATO allies all refusing to take any part in Trump's war effort, making it clear they are not participants of the war.
The months ahead may not be easy. I want to be upfront about that. No government can promise to eliminate the pressures that this war is causing. I can promise we will do everything we can to protect Australia from the worst of it.
Nous croyons aussi aux valeurs démocratiques que nous défendons. C'est ce qui fait que vous venez de le rappeler, nous défendons l'un et l'autre le retour à la paix, au cessez-le-feu, à la libre circulación a travers le détroit d'Ormuz.
Bueno, creo que todo el mundo sabe cuál es la posición española, es una posición muy clara. No vamos a autorizar, desde el principio lo hemos dicho, la utilización de las bases de Morón y Rota.
Denying United States air bases, refusing to send additional troops, Trump's allies have made their stance known. Trump is completely isolated in the war he started. And now, isolated by NATO allies, he has threatened to exit NATO. Trump's frustration is increasing as the isolation grows.
This is NATO. And I've always said NATO's a paper tiger. And I've always said we help NATO, but they'll never help us. And if the big one ever happened, and I don't think it will, but if the big one ever happened, I guarantee you they wouldn't be there.
And as far as NATO is concerned, that's a decision that will be left to the president. But I'll just say a lot has been laid bare.
While the United States is facing resistance from allies, Iran is strengthening its geopolitical support. Russia and China have openly come out in support of Iran, with Russia still reportedly supplying advanced defense systems. As the war continues, Trump finds himself completely alone, abandoned by his allies, and with the burden of the war he himself started.
We'll be running a poll on what we expect tomorrow. Will Trump be exiting? Will he be exiting NATO, exiting the war, or doing nothing? So we'll have a poll on this, and we'll keep updating this. I welcome Abhijit Chawda, well-known geostrategic expert from Mumbai tonight, and Tatiana Kukareva, from Moscow. She's a fantastic senior journalist. Dr. Zachary Paikin, he's Deputy Director of Better Order Project at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft in France. Salvatore Babones, Professor Salvatore Babones from the University of Sydney, is with us tonight. And we have Vibhuti Jha. He's been a Republican candidate in the past, and I don't know which way he stands on Trump right now. Let's see. And we'll have a couple of other pro-Trump voices also joining us in a bit. Now, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? And why is he saying, I'm going to get out of NATO? Why is he saying, why is he saying that he's going to get out of NATO? Is that being a bit of a crybaby? Professor Salvatore, I want to start with you. How do you view this?
Well, everyone's saying that this is Trump's war. But what they're not realizing is that it's Europe's oil, not just Europe, but Asia's oil. The U.S. war aims are primarily to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear capability. Just imagine if India had the opportunity in 1998 to prevent Pakistan from developing a nuclear capability, I think it would have taken it. The same thing has happened now with the U.S. and Israel. Now, that has collateral damage, but it's not the U.S. that's preventing oil transiting the Strait of Hormuz. That's Iran preventing oil transiting, and it's a problem for Europe, Australia, and Asia that Iran is blocking their oil, not America's oil.
So what does he gain, Vibhuti, by getting out of NATO? What does he gain? A momentary headline?
No, it's not a headline, Arnab. I think you raise a very valid point. The exiting of NATO, I'm not happy to make that statement, but I will definitely say so on your show because you are bold and brave. So am I. NATO is the only war club, white only, members only, of the 21st century, that Second World War scenario. Only war club. Imagine if BRICS were to become a war club, exactly copying NATO statements. So Trump is dismantling that old order. When leaders take a very bold decision, they are alone. Europeans, and this is mockery of democracy and freedom that Europe makes. And that is, they are the ones who are the biggest warmongers in the world around us. Their only contribution to world peace is 2 world wars in which many colonial armies died fighting their own territorial imperatives and their own territorial ambitions. This is something very important for the rest of the world to understand. And Trump had made that statement in his very first term, that why must the United States bear the burden of managing NATO, and that too against enemy called Russia, which no longer existed as USSR. Actually, Putin made
but then you also lose the, it's all very good and very idealistic. But you also...
It's not idealistic.
It is idealistic.
It's realistic.
No, it's idealistic.
Because
the problem is...
It frees up America from many of its entanglements of European shenanigans.
No.
That's what it is.
No. See, you're trying very hard, Vibhuti, to find a reasoning in this. To you, I would say... To you, I would say that I would agree. I would agree that to some extent that he's been consistently wanting